Hello and welcome to yet another Legends of Runeterra podcast. I'm Conansson and I'm once again joined by Vic. Hello.
Hey everybody, hope you're having a great Tuesday.
Today we are joined by a very competitive player who basically founded the Illaoi tournament scene, which I think the most regular tournament we've ever had in Legends of Runeterra, and quite a successful player himself, and it's Mtuck Mtuck. Hello.
Hello, everyone. I'm Mtuck. I wouldn't quite say I'm a founder of the competitive scene, but definitely founded the Reddit tournaments forever ago. So that was good fun back then, and definitely been a competitive player ever since.
Can you tell us a little bit about your results you had so far?
So in seasonals, I have top 2 or 3 of them. I think my top is top 16 at the moment. Got second in Max's charity tournament forever ago. That was probably my biggest money win. I won an OLS. I think I've top 4 a few of them as well. And then I was part of the NA team that beat EU. So that's probably my my favorite kind of thing. NA finally better than EU. So that's always nice.
Huge accomplishment. Huge.
Yeah, like we didn't face ever, and I make it to the top tournament. Definitely a very competitive player and had a lot of cool takes. Players over here, like loves the new grassroots tournaments popping up. Definitely watching this, drop him a follow. Move over to the actual page notes, and we have each picked 3 parts we want to discuss in depth. We'll cover the more minor changes less in depth because we don't want a 3-hour video. So for our first package here, we have the Daybreak being updated. Fiora goes from 4 to 5 mana and gains the keyword Challenger. And on her level 2 also gets Barrier once you activate Daybreak. Sun Guardian was this unusual 6-cost guy. It's now a 3 mana 2/3. Daybreak, when you activate another Daybreak, grant me +1/+1. That's the first Daybreak grant effect, I think. And build up doesn't have Overwhelm anymore. And other cards to give. Morning Light changed from 5 to 3 mana. Now gives 1/1 instead of +2/2, and always activates LS effects for the first card you play. I think this change is mainly inspired by Powerful Champions, where second power and was awkward to use there. Stellar Corn, fun card, everybody just laughed at. And then they changed it 4 mana 3/4. Daybreak, give other allies +2/+2 this round, and this is just a temporary effect. Ordnance opponent. Yeah. So, Mtuck, what do you think? Will this make Daybreak a tier 1 or tier 2?
I wouldn't say tier 1, but definitely probably. Well, it's weird. It's a really like it's a tier 1 half package. It is not a full package. That's the problem. You kind of got rid of the finisher. Morning Light is it Morning Light her spell? Yeah, Morning Light was kind of the Daybreak finisher, and you don't really have that anymore as a finisher. It's just like a tempo play, which is like nice. It's a good champ spell, but you probably would never main deck it. And like they have really good board presence, turns like 4 to 7 probably, but like they just don't have a finisher. And so as long as another deck has a reliable finisher that isn't just like I attack through your units, they'll win. So like Ionia combo decks can get around this, SI control decks can get around this, Atrocity decks can get around this, even Gangplank with Sejuani, like Plunder, can get around this. Like this is the deck that just like stomp scouts. Because you just can't attack into a Leona.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, I mean, I think that Leona having Challenger is going to be a really big deal. I don't think that Targon has had that many ways to, just kind of take over the board outside of like those old Pantheon decks that would just have like massive, 1-cost units randomly. I don't know. She's 5 mana now, which is a little bit slower. As a lot of people have been mentioning, that kind of conflicts with Ravoon on 5 as well. But I don't really see the Daybreak package being like a hyper curve centric archetype anyways. I don't know. I even with all these changes, I don't really see Daybreak being that threatening to the meta. I don't know. Maybe it's just because Targon overall is not very strong. Like Mtuck was saying, it's like a half package where you have like these kind of pretty decent bodied units, but they don't really do anything. You know, they kind of just are sitting around and then you just end up killing them randomly. So I don't know. I none of this really excites me. Like the barrier is kind of cool, I guess. Like maybe if you can give Leona barrier at burst speed, I don't think there's that many Daybreak burst or focus speed spells, are there? There's that one, but I don't know. I think it's too slow.
I've read a good take before in that it's so much of a redesign, it's hard to really judge. I also find it a little bit awkward. Like I have a lot of 5 and 3 Dire Priestess. You have the Sun Guardian you want to play. You have the Light. I wish I would have just kept Leona at 4. Just gave a challenger. I want to say it's really flavorful now. You have the Leona gameplay. We just challenge somebody, stun the other guy, get a shield later on. Killable. That's really nice. But action power level, I think it's hard to say it right now. Package. Another thought I would have is that they maybe bring out Kale later with Angel package, Daybreak.
That would be cool, yeah.
No Kale is like going to be Targon. Targon would be.
I thought Kale is Demacia.
You have like the Kale.
Oh, that's true.
Obliterator guy.
Yeah,
what I mean, the 7 mana, I don't know the name. 7 mana Obliterator guy is like Sai'nen's ultimate.
It's a Celestial something. I don't remember what the last
Celestial Impact?
I thought it was. I could be wrong.
I think there was an issue. Yeah, I think there was an issue where that card wasn't showing up in the database anyways. So
oh, that's fun.
Yeah, I guess. Okay.
I think Sunburst is the hot change because that's the card that was already getting played outside of the Leona package. So that getting changed to 5 makes like all of a sudden you have there's a reason to play this other than like over Vengeance in like Targon SI.
I purposely left this out, yeah, because I think this affects a lot of other decks that just random Daybreak change doesn't, because it also takes Sunburst out of the Reggie Terra's Financier pool. It's a really big change that you don't just get a basically better Vengeance out of Terra's Financier or Targon anymore. Yeah, pool of Targon. Yeah, definitely will.
Yeah, 100%. Any Targon control deck should be playing probably 3 of these. Like this is an insane card now.
Yeah, I agree.
It's so funny sometimes when you try to buff out of it, read the text and silences. Okay, not much to the Daybreak package. Talk about it later. Next change here is Nocturne. This change was like wanted forever. Attacking with person allies will now also count towards leveling. Nocturne not more breathing room, deck building, and quality of life change.
Yeah, I'm not an aggro player, so I can't really see how good this is gonna be. I've never been afraid of fearsomes in the past, but I have been afraid of Nocturne whenever I play against Nightfall. So maybe this makes fearsomes like really, really good. It is interesting because fearsomes can like sort of kind of do a lot in Tionia. You know, you get your Eye of the Dragon out and you get your 2/1s that heal, and they kind of just go, haha, funny. So they and then like we're kind of entering an Ionia meta, as a lot of people have said. So we'll see if fearsomes can kind of abuse that a bit.
I love fearsome keyword as a mechanic. Nice. Did you ever play Nightfall? You're just guy.
I played a lot of Nightfall. I've also played a lot of mono SI fearsomes back in the day. You know, we'll get into the Harrowing nerf, but I do think that this is gonna make Nocturne flip a lot faster. And the problem with the Nightfall cards, it wasn't really the first Nocturne that came down that was flipped. It was the second one that you really worried about. But I still think, this card is pretty close, and I think it curves really well in the Fearsome package. I can see this card being now paired with Elise, especially with the Vilemaw change. I don't see Vilemaw being played, but I do think that the fact that Elise is going to be leveling up Nocturne, I think that's going to be really funny for Fearsomes. I think it's a solid change. I don't know if I don't know. I know you mentioned that we're going to be going into an Ionia meta, but I feel like aggressive SI has just been so weak for so long, and it just kind of is so one-dimensional that I think it would just gonna get interacted with too much. I don't know. Like, yeah,
We will still have to see how the meta develops. Yeah, let's move on to Vilemaw and with the Treeline. The Treeline gets the same treatment as Nocturne, that also counts Nightfall allies now, so more use for this landmark that has never seen play. I remember seeing it like in Expeditions spreadsheet once, it was like this card. And yeah.
That's good.
Then we also have Vilemaw, who like is a real threat in Path of Champions sometimes. Hey, you know what I mean? But practically never saw any play. And yeah, now has Fearsome, buffs other Fearsome allies. So yes, that's nice. Fresh offerings. The effect.
I like what they're doing here, because the goal, like basically what they're trying to do is make it so that when the landmark pops the Vilemaw, because like the big issue with this landmark is that you get it pops when you attack, which means this Vilemaw that you like took all this time. Yeah, it's like chilling on the bench, and you have to wait the whole their turn, then your turn again to get the next attack, so you get value out of it. So they're trying to give it like some instant value, which I think is smart, and I do think like turn 4 just having an attacking Vilemaw is probably a bit too strong. So,
wouldn't just like work. You can't just give Vilemaw when I'm summoned. I attack. Really weird sometimes. We like Harrowing and then 3 Vilemaws randomly attack.
Yeah, you'd get some weird stuff happening there. So I like what they're trying to do. I don't think you play it, but like you will have niche scenarios. Like I imagine with like the Nora deck coming or floating around, where you pick this off Conch, the spell that makes the Vilemaw.
Yes.
And randomly, have a slightly better Vilemaw, which is nice. That's about the most impact I foresee these changes having on the meta.
Yeah. I think the 3-mana landmark is a little too slow for the Fearsome archetype. You really want to try to get under your opponent before they can start having those 3 attack blockers, and this thing has to see it. Like, it would be one thing if this thing leveled in deck. I think that'd be crazy. Like, they could honestly put this to like 6 or 5 and then like make it level in deck, and I think it'd be a lot better. But I don't think these cards are ever going to see any serious competitive play at all.
We have to see. Next card, Unbench the Kench. Tahm Kench finally got the treatment of Victor like ages ago. Yeah, he now also creates an acquired taste when summoned. A little bit less slow, also works on the effect. I don't think this. I think this brings Tahm Kench back into the meta.
If he does become meta, it's because TF Nami Lee is meta, and because you can run a really interesting like counter mirror tech where you cut the Lee and you cut the TF and you run 3 Tahm Kench. It's something a few people have chatted about. I don't think that'll be good because you run a lot of buffs in this deck. So like you go to eat, they buff their unit, you kill your own Tahm Kench. Like that's just game breaking. But it's an option. And it's definitely something that looks a bit interesting. But outside of that, I don't see this having any meta impact.
Especially with main buff. Did you all know that using the Tahm Kench levels up your opponent's Swain?
Oh,
so
that's so troll.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So bad. I don't know.
I feel like single combat does as well, and I don't think that that's how it should work, but it's fine. I don't think that this Tahm Kench change will be that impactful. I mean, I know there's going to be a lot of people trying to force Star Spring with this, and I do think that this potentially takes him out of the Star Spring deck, but I don't think it's any good still. Like, it's just,
This will good.
I don't know. Go ahead.
I was gonna say this is gonna bait a lot of people in the Star Spring deck. Like, you almost never want to play Eat, like the Eat spell, on the turn that you drop Tahm Kench if you're playing if you're playing Star Spring. Like, turn 4, you drop Kench, you play. He costs 3 mana or 2 mana. The spell, I think it's 2 mana. So you have at most 1 bank mana to try to not die when your opponent interacts with you. Like,
yeah,
that's yikes.
I mean,
yeah, I still think. Go ahead.
I have a level 3.5 Mastery Kench. I play Tahm Kench. I play Box the Buzz on 2, then I play on turn 3 Guiding Touch, basically. I have 2 mana open. Like a user, you can also just swap the Guiding Touch for Star Spring. Still not very good, but and I beat some people in normals with it. Never taken any serious events.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, Master Wick, Master Yi.
Master Wick.
Has the spell reduction cost now permanent? Persists to turn ends. Round start doesn't just reduce 1 this round, so 1 permanently, so you ramp into the rush with this now. And also like 11. I don't know.
I think that this kind of makes him a bench engine, and Ionia is really good at protecting those sorts of champions. Obviously, he has quick attack and 3 HP, so he's already a little bit more difficult to clear out. But I don't know. I feel like it's kind of scary, right? You have Master Yi, and if you don't attend to him, your opponent's spells are just going to be so much more cheaper over time. And maybe Master Yi won't matter as the champion. I don't know. He's so bad, just like his design and what he does. But like having a discount in Ionia with all those spells, it's like I I feel like I'm just gonna get baited into it. Mtuck, you play a lot of Ionia. Like, do you ever think that this Master Yi sees any play?
Like, if you take Lee away from the game, yes, but Lee's just better Yi. Like, that's the problem, is they're both spells matter champs. But one wins the game as early as 6. If you look at like AK Lee, Akshan Lee. One wins the game as early as turn 6. And I'm pretty sure Yi is gonna kill you on his own around turn like 9. Like, don't get me wrong, like, cheaper spells is great, but like the way you beat Ionia, like your game plan against Ionia should not be to beat them on the stack. It should be to just kill them.
Yeah, exactly.
So it doesn't really matter if like you can, I don't know, like the interaction, you're not really playing against trying to beat their interaction, you're trying to play through their interaction.
Yeah, I played Master Yi a little bit as well with like hard decks and stuff. It was nice with Master Yi Udyr. Fun with it. Have to see. Okay, now comes the first change I really want to talk about. Controversial, and that's the Fiora change. Fiora goes from 3-2 to a 4-4, 4-3 to 5-5, but also goes up to 4 mana. Not that the level up condition that used to be different doesn't get changed, so you still have to kill 4 enemies with the same Fiora. Doesn't get level up. So yeah, I will start on this because I talk on this. I really love Fiora. It's the only card that was interesting for me like when I just played Expeditions, got to construct it. I always have loved the funny win condition. My favorite card in Magic is Platinum Angel. Says you can't lose the game, your opponent can't win the game. Protect this team basically. Fun archetype I like. And I think this is interesting. I think this is a buff, but like it was a Twitter poll. There was a Twitter poll recently where we discussed buff or a nerf, and the majority of people thinks it's not a buff over the 3/3 basically. Better than a 3/2 of course, but better as a 3. I think it's a better Vic for me. Mtuck, what do you think about?
I'm really excited to play Fiora. So I love playing this game on a different axis than just to like play units attack.
Yeah.
So that's why I like Ionia, and Fiora is like right up my alley. I loved Fiora decks back in the day. I hated mono Fiora because that was like
Wow.
just really, really boring.
Yeah.
But the like Shen Fiora, when it was at its prime, I loved it because you had so much of the game was like, hey, I'm gonna flip and kill you with Fiora. Now you have to overcommit to kill my 3-drop. Okay, now I'll kill you with my actual units because
Yeah.
you played like a 7 or 8 mana into my 3-drop. It's a 4-drop now, so it's not, you can't do that as well. And I think a lot of people, if you with that poll, if you were to look through the comments, you'll see a lot of people be like, oh, it's 4 mana the same way Shen is, and that's bad. You don't want your champs being 4 mana each. But the issue is, if for those who remember playing Shen Fiora, you often didn't even play Shen on 4.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
you in that deck, you wanted to hold up 4 mana all the time. It's a little different now, but back then, Riposte was your interaction, so it was like 4 mana Riposte, 4
Yep.
mana Deny, 4 mana Spirit's Refuge. Like you always were holding up 4 mana.
Mhm.
So it's a little different now because we have like that barrier that costs 2 mana after you've supported an ally and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So it's a little different now, but you're still like you're super fine holding up mana in this deck. It is not sad for you to on turn 5 to play a 4-drop and hold up 4 mana. You're probably doing that anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
So I think that's like super fine. The fact that we'll get to it later, Riptide Sermon's getting nerfed along with this is really interesting because like what kills Fiora on 4? Like it's pretty much like Flock and
Yeah.
Black Spear. Like
Yeah.
that's basically it.
Those are both 2 conditionals.
Exactly. Like you have to 2-for-1 into her. Just the fact that you have a card that says, "Hey, 2-for-1 into me" is great.
Yeah. 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 I don't know. I feel like I'm surprised that you guys didn't like Mono Fiora. I think that Mono Fiora is like such a weird deck. It's like one of the weirdest decks in the game, and I really really enjoyed playing it because it was just so different. I think a lot of people were saying that Fiora being 4 cost really kills that deck more than it already was dead, but I don't know. The 4 HP is so massive because you just have to commit so much less to defend her. And I think that that's going to make the deck, even though she's coming down a turn later, like you're more than happy to not have to commit an extra card to save her because like with the 2 HP, like you were always spending 2 cards to save her against any form of interaction from the opponent, and it was kind of I don't know. I think Montefiore is going to be still bad, but not worse because of this change.
I hope they don't nerf Fiora again because of Mono. I agree with Mtuck. I was playing a little of Taric and Poppy recently, and Poppy is basically similar to Fiora. If they don't kill her, eventually Poppy will win the game. Opponent just plays a 7-mana Thermo Beam, for example, or a Vengeance. You just go back to playing units on curve and kill. That's really the fun I had with Fiora, that if opponent killed them, like a lot of resources invested. I even like I loved Shen so much that I just searched for another challenger, and I played a lot of Shen Chase also in tournaments, top spells and barriers and challenger, so I can swap back from PNC challenger unit actual era. Great. Covered a lot here. Move to the next one, and that's the Swain chain. Mtux, you want to talk about it? Well, let's talk quickly about what it is. Swain goes to a 4/6, like to Culling Strike anymore, and 5/7, and the second level gets Overwhelm. Leviathan change. It's them. Okay. Variety buffs. Yeah, Leviathan is now a 7 mana 5/7 and ice instead of so
I am excited for Swain. The first thing I'm gonna try is probably Swain Ionia. I don't think that will be the best Swain, but that's probably what I'm gonna try because I just got the thought of palming a blocker when they block my Swain is the most
Oh my
exciting thing ever.
gosh.
But yeah, no, I'm looking forward to this. I liked Swain a lot back in the day. I played a lot of PNZ Swain back in the few metas that was really viable. I liked TF Swain quite a bit back when in the old Buildwater days, back when Buildwater first came out. That was one of my favorite decks. I'm excited for this. This will be fun. Just the idea of being able to pressure your opponent really early with Swain on like 5/6. I know a lot of people are like, but we're entering an Ionia meta. He'll just get bounced. But it's like you play him on 5, and if he's flipped on like turn 5 or 6, like they have to palm or Hoko him every turn, or he is going to kill them.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it is not an easy task to do.
if you just let him stick around, he just stuns the aggro unit. You spend a lot of time setting up your play, spending a lot of actions, developing your recoil again. Time to run the cannon, let's say, is done. You have to develop an very early on. As you said, Ionia, Swain, I did a bunch of champ roll, where basically rolled 2 champs together. They built an Ari Swain deck. Goal was just to recall Imperial Demolitionist and then use Hoko to clear out the Fearsome block. On a gauntlet with it. It'll just be a better deck now.
Easy. Yeah, I think a lot of people worrying about Ionia. If you remember back to like the competitive days of old Lee Zoe, this was like a very common matchup. TF Swain versus Lee Zoe. And the way Lee Zoe used to win is they would usually have their stuff get stunned. And then when Swain went to attack, they would buff up like a Dragonling to block it, like the chump. And you just can't do that kind of stuff anymore. Like you can't, if your stuff gets stunned, like you can't just like chump him. You can't use like buffs to stall. There's no stalling against Swain. He's just he's deal with him or he's striking the Nexus. Like
Yeah.
I'm really scared by this. What do you think about the Leviathan change?
I think that's actually really smart. Like they mentioned in the video they had or the show they had yesterday, the game doesn't go to turn 8 that often anymore. When it does, it's like ending on turn 8 because some combo finishers happening. So having this come down to turn earlier is really smart. I think they're also really smart to have it only ping twice if it's coming down earlier. That way it's not just absolutely the end of the game. If it comes down. It being a 5/7 is a big deal. That's a really chunky blocker. Considering like when you drop this, you're saying, hey, if you can't kill me this turn, like we're at board parity for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
So
and they're dying.
Yeah, and they're probably dying. So that's really smart to make it only ping twice. There's like some amount of interaction you can have. Like you're not just instantly dead, but you're pretty close. So I'm excited. I'm looking forward to this.
I really like about this is that it puts Leviathan out of the bundle ice pillar lines. Don't generate them anymore, don't get advantage against. It's really annoying to just bundle vulnerable and then just when you hit for 3 in the answer. Also like it. Think anything you want to add to the
No, I've never really been interested in that champion, so I'm good. Thank you.
It burns. Look,
just one more thing while you're just one more thing while you're scrolling to give people like context how crazy this buff is. Some people, I think it was wrong to do this, but some people would run Might just to give Swain Overwhelm. Like they would pay 3 mana for this buff.
Yeah,
just to make this happen.
I think it's I think it is a little scary, and I don't know. It makes him a little bit more aggressive, which makes him more interesting to me, I guess.
He's the new Decimate.
He's just a better like Darius, and like that's I don't know. Like they're making Darius more and more relevant. It's kind of crazy.
Like Darius is actually I've played overwhelm decks and decks being found.
Yeah, he's built different.
Okay, let's move on here. Illaoi was hit too hard, now back to 1-6. I think that's another change that's of champions by a little. Also, that's for I don't know how it was like playable, but Vic, what do you think?
I don't know. I feel bad for Illaoi. A lot of her support cards have been kind of really hit. Like they hit Tentacle Smash pretty hard, and then they just hit the Sermon, as we'll see later. But I think that in regards to Illaoi decks, like her having the extra point of HP is gonna help a lot. But I don't know. I still feel like in conjunction with the previous Bard nerfs, that was like her only deck that she was really, really strong in. So I don't really think that this nerf will bring her back into the meta. Maybe she sees play like a tier 2, but I don't know. Her package is just so whatever now, in my opinion. Like I is still very good, but
It's sad to see all
I,
these
I
other cards being played, but Illaoi herself and
yeah. She's
Tentacles
just
were
pretty
everywhere,
slow.
but I was no.
Yeah.
Okay, any bad.
They kind of printed 1-mana Vengeance on her, which
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right.
I don't think champions with blow to attack are allowed to stay alive anymore in this game. At least
Yeah.
not well. Like that, a lot of the champions, like how do I put this? A lot of the champions that are statted in that way are meant to like play around removal, like statted like with the big bodies.
Yeah.
They're built that way because they need to attack into you, so they want to have a lot of health, or they need to stick. So like think of Azir, he needs to stick for the whole game.
Mm-hmm.
And Quiet just kind of laughs at that. So I'm sorry for Illaoi. You're like her main role back in when she was meta was to counter thralls and to counter some SI decks, and there's no more thralls to counter,
Right.
and SI has a counter.
Right. Yeah.
And it's just a better like rally deck. Like played a lot of Illaoi. Card already is dead, but I played a lot of Illaoi Jarvan. Feels okay still, but it feels way worse than just copy Tarek and rallying way fast and like one guy that just because if you like Poppy, at least you can sharp side out of it. Try to quite.
So sad. Yeah.
Okay, moving on. This champion has seen some play on. I wanted to make a joke of never seeing play, but I guess it was played in timelines. Ornn now levels up when ally has struck for 8+. That's what you.
I don't think this matters. I think
Yeah.
this, like, if Ornn flips, you don't lose, you are probably winning anyway because you're sitting here with like clearly a late game deck, like it's turn 7 and you're trying to flip a champion, and you somehow survived until turn 8 for him to flip, and like matter, so you're probably winning anyways.
I think the only place where this kind of matters is again Path of Champions. One was like basically unplayable there, and might be a little bit more playable. I don't want to say anything about like every changes about Path of Champions, but I think it's like a little bit inspired at very. And yeah, Vic, go on.
Bad champion. Bad card. I don't know. This is not going to see any play, unfortunately. I don't know. It's too slow. Way too slow.
Gave him a 2 out of 10 when he released by people.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. Nerfs here. Viego. Big nerf, and a big nerf. Goes from 5 mana to 6 mana, but also gets +1/+1, so mana 6/5 and 7/6. Yeah, I wanted to talk about this, so I can start. Because Viego was my least favorite champion to play against in the whole game. I don't even care about if Lee Sin like one-shot me or if ever Noah makes some value or stuff like that. But I love playing scouts. If you know me, I love playing scouts. I love playing rally decks. and not a lot of interaction. When my opponent just drops the Viego on 5, like kill a unit then, but he still gets the extra summon. Can't really kill him with MF because the trigger just kills a random 1-drop. It was so annoying to play against, and I hated every minute I had to spend. Very happy that he's like slower now, because against these decks it really matters, because rush down like much faster and you can rally a lot more because on 1 turn later. I don't know how impactful this is against other matchups, role matchups or something like that. I'm happy he got nerfed again. Will be a big impact on Power of Champions. Vic, what do you think?
I'm really happy that he's getting nerfed as well. I kind of share the same frustration with you. Seeing Viego come down and just kind of just completely stall and just shut down so many different playstyles, or my playstyles where I just want to kill people. He would just sit there and stop you. And I don't know, him going up to 6 mana. Now you can't play 2 of him if you're able to remove him, once at full mana. I don't know. I think even with the buffs, I don't think that he's gonna see. I wasn't even seeing that much play. I know he was seeing play in like Viego Ionia in certain lineups, but like I hardly ever saw him on ladder anymore, anyways. So I was a little bit surprised to see him on this nerf list, to be honest, but I'm not unhappy about him. I don't know. If I never had to see Viego again, I'd be pretty stoked. Did you play much, Mtuck?
Not really. I never was a huge fan of the Viego Ionia deck. It's just never my style. It's too inconsistent, it felt like. I did like the Viego Shreema at its height. But I always found other decks I liked a little bit more. This it's really interesting because you brought up how was it even seeing play earlier, and this is like a huge difference between competitive play and I don't even say non-competitive, but like sub like top master, not even top, sub master play.
Okay.
Where in competitive play, Viego is not really good right now. Like shows up occasionally Viego Ionia.
Right.
Like super occasionally in Viego Shreema, but like the Viego Shreema deck was sitting at like a 49% win rate. Viego Ionia was around 51, 52. But Viego Evelyn, every competitive player I've talked to thinks that deck sucks. But the win rate on that deck is like 55%.
Yeah.
So I get why they're nerfing him. They're not nerfing him for competitive play. They're nerfing him because he just seems to dominate Diamond for some reason. Like the Evelyn deck is just insane in Diamond somehow. It's one of
that deck.
If you one really cool thing you can do is to see like if you can parse out win rates of champions or decks in like the different like tiers. So like check all ranks, plat plus, and then masters, and see what happens to the win rate. You can kind of get a gauge on the skill level or the skill requirement of the deck, and relative to all of the decks. And this is one of the few decks that like drastically dropped the second it got into Masters.
That's hilarious.
It was like a 3 or 4% drop. But below it, it's like 4 or 5% higher. It's a tier 1 deck in terms of how it performs in plat and diamond. So I get why they're nerfing it.
Like Evelyn Viego didn't really feel like a hard deck ever. You just have to roll Space Shield basically against some decks, and otherwise you just play your Soldier, your Vora, your around Soldier on 3 basically. You have your Evelyn and Viego. They both have Space Shield and are like 5/5s and 6/5. Midrange deck you can't break through anymore as a random stuff deck. Remember back when Viego released, he saw like no play competitively. Then I got some random Silver Leaguer joining, and he was saying, "How do I ever beat Viego? He's so OP," and he was just getting laughed at. But I think Viego is really good at stopping these random mid-range strategies that you try out and try to climb with. It's just like so, you can't go wrong with him. Just play Evelyn on 4, Viego on 5, and yeah, you win. Margin of error is really. That's the reason it's better in Diamond, where people aim curve all the time. Masters, people hold up mana more often and active and counteract the 4, 5, 6 curve.
Yeah, the more I think about this nerf, the more I think this probably kills all the Viego decks, though.
Yeah.
The fact that you can't, like, again, in the Shurima version, you'd often play Viego on 6, not on 5, and you would hold the 9 mana up, and you would just hold the 9 mana up for the rest of the game. So you'd play him on 6, then you would play, on 7, you'd play mostly reactively, and then on 8, you'd play Hydrovine. And now you have to wait until turn 7 to be able to play him with the 9 mana up, and that feels terrible. Like, that deck already wasn't doing anything until Viego came down. Now he's like you're not doing anything 3/4 the game.
Yeah.
So what I think is sad is that this also kills like Evelyn, one champion, bit RNG maybe, but
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's move on to another Evelyn stuff. Hate Spike going back to 2. Back when it was released, we another podcast, and they gave this a 10 out of 10 as 2. And then they changed it to 1 mana. It was like, oh my god, really is going to be a lot of play. I still see play at 2 mana Mtuck.
Maybe in like as a 1 or 2 of it occasionally, but not. It's gonna see a lot of cuts. I'm really looking forward. They hinted that they're looking to do maybe the same spell without husks for 1 mana in a future expansion. And I'm really looking forward to that because I think that would be really good. I think that 1 mana was too strong, largely because of the husk that you got on the on the backside. So I'm looking forward to that spell. I think that'll be really fun. I really liked Hate Spike as a card. I think it was like obviously strong, but it was a strong that I like enjoyed playing against because it caused me to think and play around stuff, and it was like meaningful interaction points.
Sometimes felt too strong. I felt with 1 mana doing Sculptor or something. Felt a little bit. But definitely, like, you can interact with it, you can have fun moments with it.
I think it's a solid nerf. I think, as Mtuck was saying, the 1 mana cost point to essentially, misfix out something and then get a random keyword was a little bit too packed. It had a lot of value there because also, and of course the +1 HP from the husk that's going to go into something invaluable. I don't know. It was just seeing decks. It was just seeing play in like every SI deck, and obviously like SI has been seeing a lot of representation lately, and I think that with this being removed from the from the early game a little bit more, that it'll probably help the region get a little bit weaker. I don't know, but like we mentioned earlier, Quietus is still in the game as a pretty efficient 1 mana removal spell, but I don't know if this is actually going to see play at all anymore, because I think we're going to go back to the fact that people saw it at 2 mana, didn't play it previously, and it's just not going to be there again. It's a little, I don't want to call it expensive, but at 2, but I think it's fine to have it not be as all over the place as it was.
Yeah. You know what also deals 2 damage now? Mark of the Storm. And
yeah,
Mtuck, you wanted to talk about that in combination with Sai'nen. So we work with Sai'nen here as well. Goes from a 3/5 to a 3/3. What are your thoughts? Is Ezreal canon?
Yes. So Ezreal Cannon was a more or less bad deck prior to the buff of it going to 3 damage. It was a counter pick to Kai'Sa, and that was its entire purpose in the meta prior to it getting the buff to 3 damage. Then it got the buff to 3 damage, and then it became like a staple meta deck. And this like just the top change, so ignore Simon for a second, just the top change would bring it back to a niche counter pick. With the Sai'nen change, I don't know how this deck's going to survive. One thing I thought was really interesting, if you were to go back and watch the video from yesterday with Plink, is that how you pronounce his name, Plink?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, with Plink, he maybe I'm reading into something a bit. Who knows? I think he struggled a bit when we asked him, or who was the other person on the
community manager.
Ceremony.
Yeah, well, when he asked him how the community manager, I just don't remember his name. But when he asked him like why is this getting nerfed? Is it power level? Is it hit cannon? The answer was like really struggled. Like it was kind of like yeah, power level. Let's go with that. I'm almost positive this is a future proofing, as in something's coming out that this would just break, because that's the only thing that makes sense. Kennen Ezreal was the only Kennen Ezreal was the only deck playing Sai'nen. Kennen Ezreal gets a buff, becomes meta dominant, and then like it gets a nerf and then an extra nerf on top of that. But like it was a bad deck prior to the first buff, so it doesn't really make sense to nerf it twice. The only thing that makes sense to me is there's something coming out in the future expansion that Sai'nen would just break. And this is just like future proofing for that.
And we have confirmation that this is actually what Riot does. Watch our podcast with Flink last week. Mentioned that back when they buffed the nerfed tree. It was like, why do you nerf tree? It's already a bad deck. And it's late, and they had it nerfed because of the weapon masters coming up. Like that. So, because of a few. Yeah. Big anything?
No, I think Mtuck covered all that pretty well.
Next, Riptide Sermon, the card that made me not play the game for a while. Like, not at all, but a little. I think this frustrating card to play against. Heal 4 unit, now 3 unit, and 1 to the next, so activate Plunder, but you don't have a Decimate card that costs. And yeah, Vic, you wanted to start on.
Yeah. So, we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier with the Illaoi buff, talking about how the rest of her package was taken down a notch. And Riptide was definitely one of the most powerful cards, I think, released in a very long time. I think giving Bilgewater access to even more backline removal has, with these recent tentacle cards was really interesting, but kind of pushed the power budget of the region a little bit too much. 4 HP is just such a high number in this game, and having a card that would be able to threaten so many important engines in the meta was just kind of backbreaking. Even though it was 6 mana and, kind of expensive to hold up, it was still you would just win the game on the spot if your opponent played into it. And I think that taking this down to 3, making it so that a couple champions and other valuable cards won't be able to get killed by this. Like Fiora doesn't die to this now, and that's going to be super sick. Like Mtuck mentioned. In regards to the Nexus damage, I feel like this card was being played in the aggressive decks, like Pirates, with the Nexus damage being a good upside to the fact that you got a body and got to clear out a blocker. I could still see this card being played in only Illaoi decks if she comes back into the meta. I think because this card was just played in so many decks and, kind of became the new backbone for Bilgewater, I think them hitting this card is really good for the game, trying to get other regions to be a little bit more viable. Mtuck, do you think that Bilgewater is still super dominant after these changes?
It's hard to say, because like this is still a good card for Plunder. I don't know how good, but it still does what Plunder needed it to do.
Right.
So it's still fine there. The question is GP Sedge meta anymore, given that its primary target was Pirates, and Pirates is getting huge hit from this.
Mm-hmm.
So it's in it like, is it good in Pirates? I don't know. Like, there's a lot of things you wanted to hit for 4. Like Heimerdinger, now Fiora, Nami. Nami's probably the biggest one.
Yeah. Gwen.
Gwen. Like Gwen's huge because that's a counter champion to aggro, and that's how you dealt with it. Like, there's a lot of things that you wanted to deal with this, and that's just kind of just like, instead of like this used to be a card that said like, I kill my opponent's engine, and now it's a card that says I kill my opponent's follower.
Yeah.
I can see that. It's a bit different now. So I don't know if it's so good. If it is good, it's like a 1 of. It's not like a 3 of. I don't think if it is good.
Yeah. I think that if they could have left the damage to the Nexus at 2, in my opinion, and it wouldn't have mattered.
I think it will still see a little play in kind of decks, because I think the biggest point was you get a 2-for-1 on actions. It's basically
That's
a
true.
Rocklet Sentry, but steroids. Summon a guy, and then you also summon a guy, so the opponent can only get one more guy, and then you just provide for him. And
Yeah.
I think this still does this really well. Don't kill the Heimerdinger anymore, but you still kill a random blocker, and then you get a guy on board, and it's just a double summon. If there's still an aggressive Bridgewater deck run, it sets you up for a big knife or something. Comes back. Maybe it's a little kills Poppy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not a fan of the card anyway. Let's see how it shapes up. Next card, Decimate. Goes
Yep.
from 5 to 6 mana. So I pass the word over to Vic. I want to look at this one really quick. Nocturne Burn package has of strong 1-drops and solid face damage has been overperforming for a while now. Large part of the redundancy of good options for the enemy nexus to 0. Don't want to X Decimate entirely, just cut back its hold on the career. So Vic, what do you think?
I think, well, this hurts my soul deeply, obviously. I know a lot of people are going to be talking about Jace Decimate soon, and I mean, I think that's a little bit interesting. But in regards to the comment they made about the Noxian Burn package, I mean, if you scroll through the Decimate decks, it's literally only pirates, and it's Bilgewater, in my opinion. That has been keeping Decimate so strong. I don't know. Uh, it's really difficult for me to think that this nerf is justified, knowing that it's only in one deck. I don't really like it when a card that's only in one deck gets nerfed. Like, I'd rather have them look at the other knobs that they can turn to kind of reduce the power for, and look at cards that are being played in more decks. I don't know. I also, I don't know if how much this matters, because I feel like if you still top deck a Decimate, you're still going to be able to play it, and that's the most impactful time for Decimate. When you're top decking it and you're completely out of gas in aggro decks. I don't know. This also feels like a placebo change for the community. I feel like a lot of the people, maybe I'm subtweeting like casual players a little too heavily, but I feel like a lot of people will look at any aggressive archetype and just get upset that it exists. And so seeing like a nerf to Decimate is something that, kind of placates the masses of aggro haters, but maybe I'm just biased. Mtuck, do you think that this is a dead card now?
I mean, it's still played in if pirates exist, this is still played in pirates.
Right.
But I like their, so if you look at nerfing Decimate in like a vacuum, it looks weird. Why are we doing this? This is crazy. But when you I think their reasoning for it made a lot of sense. Again, if you look back at the video, the reasoning for it was essentially you can't really tweak a 1-drop and keep it playable. Like, what do you do to Legion Saboteur to make it playable and nerf it? 1/1 is dead. Like 1/2 is pretty dead. Like, how do you change that card in a way that doesn't just make it a bad card?
Yeah.
And that's pretty much the case for all. The only 1-drop that has a knob is Rearguard, the 3/2 that can't block. You can change that to a 3/1.
That can block.
I mean, maybe, yeah, they have that in Shrima. So
No, that's true.
I mean, I don't really know. I haven't thought through that or not. But the point is, like, that's the only card that's a 1-drop that has a knob. Even the 2-drops are just 2 1-drops with Mirai. So like, you can't change these cards in ways that keeps them even remotely playable. So they're basically saying we're going to change the card that has a big knob, which is Decimate, because when we change that knob a little bit, it's a little bit. If you change the knob on any other cards, it's a big bit.
Yeah.
So I get their reason, and like, pirates did need nerfed. If you just look at the numbers, it was clearly breaking the metrics for a while now. So
yeah, I think that comment. Oh, go ahead, Conansson.
Like, first of all, with the unnerfability, I think that's a bad argument. Like, you can always nerf cards. Like, just give them some kind of different condition. For example, Legion Saboteur attack. If you attack with another Noxus ally, then deal 1 to the enemy next or something like that. You can always you have to make the card more complicated, but always some kind of way to nerf it. Even just keeping the cost in the stat line themselves. Just have to make up more conditions. Easy to fulfill in certain decks, but harder for others. And I don't know. I don't like the argument. What I like more, and what most people think are missing, is this sentence: redundancy of good options for access to 0. I think they are again planning in the future to release more burn cards. But they also changed Aftershock because there's a new burn package coming up. And burn is really the deck that's living off of critical mass. Print too many, deal 4 to the enemy nexus, and at some point some deck will just sit there and play only burn cards, which will be really unfun for some decks. So you have to reduce the burn cards if you release new cards. And actually I thought about this for a while now. That you have these definitely Mystic Shot, Get Excited, all these cards that deal a lot of damage. You can't really print more of those. You can't just make a second Decimate or something. Because then we see Riptide Sermon was really point of the critical mass. You just get another deal 2. Just too much. And I think they're doing this also for the future to be able to print more aggressive cards, more direct damage cards. Yeah, for meta reasons, it makes sense to nerf Pirate Aggro, but I think Pirate Aggro is so big in the meta because there's no other viable aggro deck. And Chin is terrible, and Nightfall was terrible. They're all 70-30 against certain decks. And just print another good aggro deck, and people will stop playing Pirate Aggro. Because people will still try to play aggro. Because they're aggro players like Vic out there.
Right. Yeah. I think Mtuck said, Decimate, if you're playing a Decimate deck, you're still going to play a Decimate deck, but those decks are just going to be a lot weaker. And they have been weak, in my opinion, for a few patches now. There's a reason why we only have one aggro deck. We only have pirates, and a lot of people were arguing that it was straying away from true aggro and becoming more of a mid-range deck, I guess. But I think that was just all Sermon. I think without Sermon, it kind of returns. Yeah, I think it was just a Sermon mid-range, quote. But I think Decimate, you're still gonna be playing it 100% if you need to play Decimate decks. I don't know.
Interesting discussion. We could have whole episode and just aggro and cost and combo aggro. We have some more cards to cover, so them random ones. One card we still want to talk about, Vic goes this one third card.
Yeah.
3 in a row, basically. The Harrowing going to 10 mana. What do you think about this?
Yeah, so Harrowing going to 10 mana, I thought that was interesting because it's also another card like Decimate that's kind of only currently being played in one specific archetype primarily, and that's Red Gwen. Obviously the card is very strong, right? You play Harrowing and you essentially win if it goes off. As I mentioned previously, I used to play a lot of Mono Shadow Isles Fearsome, and this was you would keep this card sometimes, which was quite insane. Even though we are in a meta with a lot of Ionia, we are still seeing this card being quite effective. And I don't know, a lot of people are upset about this because it hurts Anivia even more. It kind of hurts a lot of these really, really bad decks that kind of depended on it, like Hecarim decks really depended on big harrowing turns. I don't know. I think it kind of is going back to the fact that it is an expensive card, so the cost from 9 to 10 isn't as severe as touching the early package of the Red Gwen deck. I also think that it going up to 10, you can't play it with enough mana to, with a deny in your pocket if you're combining with that. But I don't know. It just feels like they're doing that thing where they're saying, well, it's an expensive card, we can make it a little more expensive without killing the deck. Yeah. Mtuck, you have any thoughts on Harrowing?
Yeah, they're doing this largely for the Gwen Katarina deck.
Yeah.
And I was taking a look at that because that card or that deck seemed to almost disappear from the meta, it felt like. And then I looked around at other regions, and that's only true for NA. NA played it a lot less recently. But EU and especially APAC have been playing it quite a bit. And there's a Twitter account, I think it's Lore-Meta, that posts daily stats. I looked through like the last couple of days on APAC, and they've been consistently hitting like 58 to 60% with this deck
Oh wow.
in Masters, which was like shocking me because I was like, I don't think this deck's that good, but they have been. So it was pretty crazy to see that. So apparently I mean, Clink even hinted to it. Apparently it's breaking Riot's metrics. I was surprised to hear that, but and by the way, whenever I say Riot's metrics, I'm referring to Riot's come out and said 55% win rate and a 15% play rate are the two metrics that will instantly say this card needs nerfed. And it's maintaining that win rate, not just hitting it once or twice, but like maintaining it. So just I'm going to reference that a few times, and that's what I mean by it.
Yeah. Do you think that for that, the Gwen deck, do you think that this was the most problematic card in that deck?
I mean, that deck's a deck full of bad cards that just happen to work together. Like, I mean, really, like all those cards individually are bad. Like, Katarina's okay, Gwen's okay, but like Gwen was like the biggest 50% win rate card I've ever seen when it released. They had a whole lot of decks that were all 50% win rates. Harrowing is like okay. The overwhelming guy Reckoner is like okay. Like it was a bad card up until that point.
That's true.
The 4/3 rally is good in niche decks. The 3/6 that like is a 6-drop that summons when
the dancer.
The dancer is bad outside of that one deck. Like it's a deck full of bad cards. Like they just happen to work together. So I don't know how you nerfing that one's hard.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, Harrowing got covered.
Yeah.
Let's move on. We still have some more to cover here. Rite of Calling goes up to 1 mana. Probably hit a little bit of decks. Now play Call Creatures, Wiggly Bubblefish with Shurima. Generate Rite of Calling. Nami out.
Nami Shurima, let's go!
I know some people will be happy about this. The change, I'm much more excited.
I was just gonna say, this is like the best change I can think of to prevent a lot of toxic decks. Every deck that has had Rite of Calling, like, is just a horribly toxic deck. Infinite, and I'm an Infinite player, but Infinite, not Callista, Kaisa, Lee Akshan is like a combo deck that kills you on 6 because of this kind of stuff. And then like there are a few meme decks like Time Bomb Printer runs this, but like it's basically things that say I need my champion and then I win the game. It's like just really toxic decks tend to run this card. So I'm really happy to see this get changed.
And part that makes me sad basically is Targon's Peak. One was not in the original match and goes from 5 to 6 mana. While I want to like a little bit explain why this makes me sad. Is like my last card on the list, and it's because there are different types of players. I heard before, Mtuck and me both like playing these Fiora champions. We like playing early mana up. Mtuck, we like Aronia. You like Reaction. Vic, you like Burn. And my bottom of my heart, I always liked slamming big cards on the table, like Blue Eyes, like random stuff. Like a only Timmy player.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's really another deck anymore that just says, I slam my big guy and you have to deal with it. There are more big guys. This is what always felt like Targon's Peak, and I feel like if we make this deck unplayable, just lose a part of our player base. There is just no other than big guys and have fun deck. I get that it's frustrating to play against, but
I don't think it was needed. I get why it's there, because it can create some really dumb experiences, like turn 5 or turn really Targon's Peak into turn 5, like FTR, like obviously is really annoying, and creates really high variance. But by and large, whenever this card got played, or whenever you played against this deck, it was a free win on ladder. The times it wasn't felt terrible, but like you're talking like for the most part, it's like a 60-40 or 65-35 into most, like as in like you're favored into this deck with most decks. Any deck that has a semi-proactive game plan. So I get why it's there. It's a change for the competitive community, and I get it, but I don't think it's needed.
think this is another change for the future. We get like a 9-mana Kale or something. First 9-mana
Maybe.
champion, and then
Yeah.
okay. Then we have the timelines. That's adders here. Goes from 1 mana to 2 mana. Does this kill the deck, Mtuck?
It doesn't change it at all, in my opinion. Except for turn 2. It matters on turn 2. Because turn 2 you can't play a 2-drop. So that matters. The biggest high roll used to be turn 2 Boxopus.
Yeah.
And you can't get that anymore, which is nice, because sometimes you just have a 6/6 challenger that can't block, but like who cares? It's a 6/6 challenger on 2. And that wasn't really fun. But yeah, you can't do that anymore. But outside of that, like the deck that this really hurts you against is Ionia, because they can Notify this. You've given them opportunity to Notify it now. The problem is you were losing to Ionia anyway. You are not playing timelines to beat Ionia. You're playing timelines to beat mid-range. You're playing timelines to beat control decks. Because control decks can't, like as an SI control, because they can't really interact with like 6/6s every turn. So it's still gonna be good against what it's good against. It's gonna be worse than what it's worse against. And generally changes that polarize you, I tend to not.
Yeah, I think it's pretty. I don't think this is a good change overall. I think the deck turned out to be pretty okay. Like, I think concurrent timeline decks are not very dominating. I think we saw them really big at the beginning of the expansion, and maybe like this is too much of an overcorrection. I think this kind of kills a lot of people's will to play it, but I don't know. I think it's gonna fall out just because people tend to stop playing decks that are nerfed.
The Reddit change for people. Oh, timelines.
Yes. Yeah. Same with the peak. But yeah.
Peak. Want to play timelines can just play deep.
Yeah.
Okay. For the variety buffs, we're running a little bit short on time, so we can quickly go over them. And Ayula now granting Face Shield Overwhelm. Granted on her if you don't have minutes. Just really quickly, does this the play? Yes. Tuck.
Yes, in Pantheon.
Yeah.
It replaces what Zenith used to do.
Think you agree?
Yeah, I think that the grant overwhelm is huge. So
we'll be seeing. Maybe Pantheon comes. I like Pantheon. Okay, Paper Tree now buffs the attachment instead of the unit. This is the play, Vic.
No, it's garbage though. It's fine. We can go next.
to quote Drissoth, they buff the worst card in the game into the card in the game.
Yep.
Okay.
Still bad.
Agreed. Shiki Spinner, one of my favorite cards back in the day. In Expedition Land, 2/5, Grand Spider Allies, also buffs himself, +1. Now it's a 2/4, Spider Allies, +0 this round. I think this is a nerf because. Anyways, does he play?
No.
I don't think so, no. No, I don't think so. If it had Fearsome, yes, but it doesn't have Fearsome.
Oh, yeah, if it had Fearsome. Sure, for sure.
Ritual of Renewal, other rated nerf. Every month there's a post about why is Ritual Renewal in the game, and there's like now 4 mana makes it for 4 instead of 7. Hey, Ionia, Mtuck.
No, but if there's ever a way to generate this card, then you're really happy.
There isn't. Karma is the only way. 4 and 5 are the spots for cards you don't want to generate. Look to other cards in the game. Ages. Ripper's Bay, playable card. What it now does is granting the top ally of your deck Lurk. Really, I read a Twitter post about this morning that like it's bad in Lurk now because all the cards have Lurk anyways. It's bad in non-Lurk cards because all of the other cards don't hit Lurk and draw this card, and deck just does. Mtuck.
Yeah. If it sees play, it's in a toxic elusive deck. That's the only way it sees play.
Oh boy. That's a cool. Vic, anything to say?
I don't know. I think this rework is very interesting. I think what it indicates is that Riot is willing to just kind of completely rewrite cards. Like this is so different, and I think
Is it?
I think it's I think so. I think granting Lurb is like a huge difference, you know, because I don't know. I think it's a good indication of what Riot's willing to do. That's all. I don't
This
know
is
if this
definitely
card's
massively different. Yeah, it's definitely massively different. This used to be a card that like justified you. The goal of it, at least, was to justify you playing non-lurk cards in a lurk deck. This is now a card that you would never play in a lurk deck, and you play in a deck that is 34 cards that aren't lurk, 3
Yeah.
Ripper's Bay and 3 Pike.
Ah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that actually.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, I
Right.
have to think about it a little bit more. Feel about it. Next, Magical Journey. What is that? You plan 3 chimes on a random card in your deck. Now it plants 1 chime on the top. Still unplayable.
Better
Yeah.
concept.
Better concept.
Better content. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Ram's Caretaker does not get Grant allies. 4/5 instead.
Yeah. It's whatever.
Better timelines.
Still not played.
Yeah. Grumpy
Yep,
Rock
bad
Bear
card.
goes to a 5/5 bad card.
I don't know. Like, what is this card even?
This does make the 2/4, the thing that kills a landmark, that onto the 3/3 like that dies. I'm messing up names, but the 3/3 that dies to create a landmark.
Yeah.
When if you can kill that on 3 and then play the 2/4 on 4, this is now the most like insane tempo play ever. It was already a very high tempo play, but it's more insane now.
Yeah. The what was it? The Devote.
Yeah, you get your Devout
Devout,
and you play it as a naturalist on it. Like this, getting a 5/5, a 5/3, and a 2/4 is just kind of insane. Like if Scouts is ever meta, like the meta, like as in the highest point Scouts and like Poppy Tarek, you just go back to back these kinds of decks and say like, okay, deal with my 5/5.
Yeah. Yeah, I see that.
Hunsmith, I was looking forward to the change to a 3-drop. It's just a 2/3. This matter
Whatever.
at all.
Garbage.
Give me a 3-drop Hunsmith, please. Let's break the game.
Yeah. Maybe. Okay.
Man of Shaman, random card, getting random buffs, still a 6-mana 5/5. Matter, right?
I don't know. I don't
Rickorex is happy.
Rickorex is happy. Nice. I like a happy Rickorex.
True.
Better Darius.
Yeah. I mean,
you're not kidding.
Yeah.
Okay, and the last card in the actual patch, we have Windsinger, Ionia, 6-mana, 3/3 now, and gets elusive. Tuck, see any play?
I don't think so, but I really want it to. Because it's such a cool card.
Really?
I think it's probably too slow. I think it needs to be like a 2/3/5 drop for play. But I think a 2/3 elusive 5 drop's probably pretty broken. That like does the bounce effect. But yeah, I really want this card to see play. This card's really cool.
Yeah. I mean, the effect, like in Magic the Gathering, it's a 4-mana 2/2 monster unit with elusive. That's kind of standard. No, like manage so much.
Yeah, 4 mana seems crazy. I wish they would have kept the attack at 4. You know what I mean? Just for Decimate. Just, I don't know. There's so many. I don't know. This card is never going to see play, in my opinion.
Okay, and lastly, we want to talk about the lack of Nami nerfs. Had a Nami. Nami is like one of the best decks right now, and there were no changes to Nami, no changes to Shelly. Shelly. We're saying give this once per turn, give the Nami kind of changes, and got confirmation big my feeds that it was just a bit too late to get nerfed. They would have nerfed it if the patch was a little bit earlier, which confuses me. My comments here. Canoptic stuff, then they made Targon speak in like 1 day earlier. Then can't do that. Why do they not have Nami now? The whole situation is kind of confusing. Mtuck, you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, so For context, the current Lee Sin Nami TF, or I should say Nami Lee Sin TF in correct order, deck that's running around. The list that's like really popular in Masters right now, it's running one Double Trouble. I'm the one who like popularized that specific list. I can't take credit for it because I actually got a lot of inspiration for it from Pat, who said Double Trouble's a bad card, and then I was like, maybe it is, and so it is. My win rate spiked a lot when I stopped running that card. I still run one, but yeah, anyway. Just to give a bit of context to like why I have a lot of thoughts about this, that's the deck I've like used to get. I think currently I'm rank 10.
Nice.
It's thank you. This deck is broken, like full blown, needs nerfed, no doubt about it. But I understand why it didn't get hit. Up until this point let's go even off of what they said with peak. So give or take, Thursday, Friday is when they would have added that in, right? So because I was like came in late or whatever, it was missed in the preview. And preview came out Friday, so that means they would have like added that in on Thursday or Friday before it could get into the preview.
Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, give or take. I'm like, I don't know the exact date, right?
Yeah.
But give or take, that's when they would be locking the patch in internally. This deck, this like Lee Sin deck, didn't pop up in win rate and play rate until last week. In the video yesterday, they talked about it. He said the only spot this deck's even breaking their metrics is in Masters. It's not breaking it anywhere below hand. And in Masters, it only started breaking it this weekend, and that makes a lot of sense. I did a bit of looking back into the history of this patch to see where the old TF Nami deck, it's not really old, it's still being played at a like 10th or 11th in the play rate list. TF Nami no Lee Sin. The key difference, just so people know, is the Lee Sin, but also the weapon package. So the good list is running Hookmaster and Momentous Choice. The less good list is running none of that. It's just running a bit more control cards. That deck, the TF Nami without the Lee Sin, has been being played the whole patch, but it's been floating between a 53.5% and 56% win rate. And the only time it hit 56 was when Pirates was at its peak play rate. And this deck, it counters Pirates. So it makes sense that in Pirates peak, that the counter is going to have a really high win rate. You don't nerf a deck because it hits the metric that Riot puts out. So Riot's metric is 55%. You nerf a deck because it stays above that metric. And if you were to like look at every week of where this deck sits, it usually is between 53.5 and 54.5. I checked yesterday and it was at 53.5. I checked, I think it was like about a week ago, and it was at 52.5. And then before that, it was at 54.5. So it floats around. But nowhere near, I won't say nowhere near, but not over Riot's metric. It is clearly a good deck. And if you look at top pilots of this deck have between a 65 and an 80% win rate. They are really high. So I understand why there are master players going, hey, this deck needs nerf, because there are individuals who are crazy with it. But Riot doesn't balance for the top of masters. They balance for the ladder as a whole, which includes some masters. They're important.
Yeah.
But they're not the whole thing.
Right.
And I think a lot of people struggle with that one. This deck does not perform at a point that should break metrics. The second Lee Sin was put in, absolutely, 100%. But that didn't happen until this weekend, as in the point where Riot was able to notice it. It was seeing niche play prior to this, so even like 2 weeks ago, the deck existed. Sertimund got like spiked on Masters with it. Cephalopod won OLS with it. And a few people were playing it, but it was like 25th in play rate, which is like sub 0.5%. So it just wasn't seeing a lot of play. It's not enough. Like if you were to nerf every deck that touched 55%, you would be nerfing a lot. You would be nerfing basically half of the played decks currently if you would just nerf decks that touched 55% and didn't stay there. Again, if you look at the Twitter I mentioned earlier, the lore dash meta, the daily win rates for like common meta decks are usually like they randomly spike into like the 60s. it'll be for a day. It's not going to stay there. But in a 24-hour period, it's not uncommon to see a deck like Timelines, which is currently like a 51% deck, hit 56% for a day. That's not uncommon at all. So you can't nerf that just because they touch 56. You nerf them because they stay there. And the TF Nami prior to Lee just wasn't staying there. Currently it is, and they've already said they're probably going to touch it either in the next expansion or the next patch because it is broken, like it needs nerfed. But I get why it didn't get nerfed. There are a lot of people who are saying like Nami's been an issue for like 3 seasons. That's only true for like the top 0.25% of players.
Yeah, they follow Drizzoth too much. That's why they say that.
Yeah, like if you look at TF Nami, they were like SI version. That was the deck that like was prior to the Sai'nen was really popular. Was the SI version, and also the PNZ version. The SI version, there was like jokes when that became like meta because you see Drizzoth hitting like 80% with it. You see Kaido hitting like 70% with it. Like there are players who are doing really well with it, but then like you look at the stats and it's like a 46% win rate deck. There was like one point it was like a 47, 48%, and it's like, what are we gonna do? Nerf that? Like I get why they're not nerfing that because the deck's not even playable by like most of the player base.
Yeah.
And the PNZ version was worse as far as stats go. Arguments on if it's better when piloted by a good player. You can argue that left, right, and center, but stat-wise, it was worse. So saying Nami was an issue for 3 seasons is like basically true for the top 0.01% of players and not true for 99.99%. And I don't think that as a company you can go about balancing for the 0.01%.
No, not at all. Not at all.
And yeah,
but I do look forward to. Yeah, I do look forward to seeing what they do with this deck. I think the Ionia package just got a ton of buffs, or a ton of new cards. And they don't typically like to nerf their new cards if they can avoid it. So I'll be curious to see what they do nerf if they don't nerf those.
And I agree, this deck is just really hard to play. You have to manage a Spellman, you have to both level up your Nami, like you can't just like slap units on curve. So most of the player base will struggle with try to play with Time Disciple on 1, Cold 2, Nami on 3, and then lose the game. And yeah, I think this deck will still not cover like depths of silver or bronze or something, or diamond better maybe. I can see why it's very strong against master players and have it in. Really like playing against a lot, but better than like
I think one interesting thing with the new like LP changes, how it kind of affects the stats is a bit weird because like currently Masters is about 2/3 what Diamonds used to be. Currently we have 2,700 give or take Master players, and we usually were ending with like 1,200 give or take at the end of the season.
Wow,
crazy.
Yeah, so like 2/3 of Masters almost is what used to be in Diamond. So when you look at the stats now, it's kind of weird because like if a deck is 56%, that means in like the old system it probably would have been a slightly higher even. But you could also argue like you're playing against on average lower skilled players compared to the old system, so like maybe that balances out. It's hard to say. So it's an interesting like question for stats.
All right, covered this enough. Let's look at the rest of the patch now. There's like more skins. Like the Zoe skin looks pretty nice. Garen skin looks nice, definitely.
Yeah.
Look really good. Never play Garen anywhere. Zoe skin.
I know, right?
I probably
yeah,
get that
skin. The Garen skin's sick. If we ever have a Garen deck, that Garen deck's sick. That Garen deck is sick.
Yeah. Oh
Best
yeah.
Path of Champions maybe.
Or skin, yeah.
Okay. Mark of the Storm will be live as these patch notes with the best dropping on AS now.
Basically, anytime they do a balance patch that comes out, any system changes go live on Tuesday, and that's if they're just saying that's included in the system change, the Mark of the Storm balance patch.
So it's live right now, right?
Yeah, so they're saying Kenny is doing 2 damage.
So funny.
It's the nerfed.
Yeah.
Half level up. What has been updated in live. We'll see that later. Competitive does not contain a seasonal tournament. Instead, it will be right around the corner. Worlds. You have to.
That'll be fun. Looking forward to that one.
Yeah, we need that soon.
Anything interesting in bug fix? And this one looks the crash when equipped with Darkin Harpoon. What tag is Darkin?
I don't know. I think it's
That's
the dark and
the 4-mana strike, I think.
the ballista. No,
The ballista.
Is it?
Strike is the.
Is it okay? I'm going based off the name. I don't actually know what the.
no, that's not a real card. That's a miss. That's a miss.
It's Darkin Ballista, I think.
That's a typo. Yeah.
No, yeah, I'm talking about the 4-mana strike if you have an equip.
Yeah, that's what that's called. It's something different.
It's not the harpoon. Okay, then I have no idea.
It's played in this deck. Let's see. Furious Wilder.
Huh.
Yeah, weird bug. Fix the bug with Kane's origin. Crash with him, blah blah. Halfways cost and cards. This cards being discounted. Oh, that was such a cool after. Fix the bug with chassis incorrectly referring equipment. Crash when buffer dark in you. Dark when attacker. Oh, Green attacker got buffed finally. Bugged fix.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah.
Glorious Solution, choice cards, Darkness Mirror. Oh, Darkness bug was also. Darkness Mirror is such a pain to play.
The counting.
Yeah, you don't have to have a notepad out when you play now.
Boomship and Sanctum Conservators interact. That's 97% of the player base doesn't even know what half of these cards are.
Yeah.
Do you know what a Sanctum Conservator is?
No.
That's the one where it's like
card,
if you've the Slay card.
Slay in 13 cards like will followers.
Oh, that
ridiculous.
was.
Yeah.
That was the card that we all wanted to be meta, but never was.
Yeah. I think the only change that matters in the bug fixes, maybe it's a little late, is the Powder Pandemonium. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
The end of the thing, like.
Yeah.
The issue with Evolve not counting for units taken from. That's good. Issue with champions not gaining level up, flowing.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
A data thing, the numbers.
Using effects for cards and that one was like a whole video on this one.
Wait, is that the Husk bug?
No, that's basically, I think that's the Sermon bug. Like, that's a lot of. It's the Husk bug.
I think that's the Husk bug.
I think that's the Husk. It sounds like the Husk bug. They don't really get that specific in the bug fix patch or notes. But that sounds like the Husk bug.
Yeah.
Remove plunder from part of anime. The hidden plunder.
Yeah.
Like I really like.
It's funny because that was fixed last time. Like that was fixed in the last patch.
I know they didn't mention it.
I always go to these bug fixes in these videos because I watch people like rule stuff and want to understand what these bug fixes mean. I heard that a lot. And then fix an issue. 2 burst spells created triggers in the roll cost. Okay, fix the bug wizard. Oh, that was the multi-reach. There were so many reports of that.
Yeah.
That's very not allowed in Viego. But yeah, here we have the second guy, Seronina. That was turning Blink. Great change overall, great patch overall. Any last words? Start with Mtuck.
Overall, really good patch. Unfortunately, probably still going to largely be predominantly an Ionia meta. I'm a seasonals is going to be a 2-deck format, not a 3-deck format, because it's going to be bring TF Nami Lee and ban TF Nami Lee. So we're going to be playing old Fight Night format for those who remember that one. That'll be fun.
Hey.
But yeah, it'll be. I'm looking forward to seeing like where this stuff goes. If there's a Daybreak package deck, I'm gonna be really excited for that because I like Targon in general. I find Targon really fun, so looking forward to that.
Vic, any last words on the patch?
I think the patch is gonna be pretty interesting. I think we're gonna see a little bit slower of a meta with Pirates probably getting knocked out and Ionia continuing to be very strong. I don't know. I think people should start playing rally decks.
I'm going to slam Fiora over.
Yes, true.
That's going to be it for this patch review. Thank you for watching. Thank Thank you, Mtuck, for joining. Wick, of course, as well. At
course.
last. Thanks.